Hello, what's up guys, Medium Guy here, and in this video we're going to see what is a rate limiter and why do we need it and how to design and implement in a demo application. So without any delay, let's get down to work. So what is a rate limiter and why it matters to have it in our infrastructure? So a rate limiter limits the number of client requests allowed to be sent over a specified period of time. If the API requests count exceeds the threshold defined by the rate limiter, all the excess calls will be blocked. For example, a user can only post up to 10 times in a minute, or a user can only create up to 10 accounts per day from the same IP address. So what are the benefits of having a rate limiter implemented in our infrastructure? So a rate limiter prevents DOS attacks, which stands for denial of service, and in which the attacker's intention is to bring down a service by utilizing the available resources, so the service will go down for period of time and will not be able to respond for the requests. Also, it can prevent brute force attacks in which, for example, a user will try to guess the password for a username. Like, for example, you have an API that by providing a username and password, a user can authenticate and get an access token for your application. So by using this attack, the attacker will try a username with lots of passwords using a password list. So there is a chance that he can sooner or later find out the password for that exact username. So I've got a demo brute force attack video which I'll link down in the description section. If you find interesting, you can give a visit. Also, the rate limiter can prevent the web scraping bots, in which some bots will try to scrape your website looking for some specific data which you might not be aware of that, and actually you don't want those bots scraping your data. Also, it can reduce costs, like where the system is using a third-party API service and is charged on a per call basis. And lastly, it can reduce the server load by filtering out the excess requests which you don't want to be reached by your infrastructure. So to implement rate limiter, we have generally three places: a client side, server side, or as a middleware. So actually the client side is an unreliable place to enforce rate limiting because client requests can be easily manipulated by malicious actors. Even better than placing it on the server side is to use a rate limiter middleware which will throttle access requests even to our server side. So actually the requests will be limited in this level and the excess requests won't be even reached to your infrastructure, and as a result you'll have a better performant application. So we can have multiple algorithms to implement rate limiting. As an example, here we have the token bucket algorithm. So in this implementation, the bucket has tokens with a predefined capacity. When a request comes in, it takes a token from the bucket and is processed further. If there is no token to be picked, the request is dropped and the user will have to retry. In simple words, in the token bucket algorithm, we process a token from the bucket for every request. New tokens are added to the bucket with rate R. The bucket can hold a maximum of B tokens. If a request comes and the bucket is full, it is discarded. The token bucket algorithm takes two parameters, one being the bucket size, which is the maximum number of tokens allowed in the bucket, and the other is the refill rate, which is the number of tokens put into the bucket every second. So next I'm going to demo a rate limiter in a Node.js application, which is actually a server-side rate limiting and is not actually the recommended way. Instead, you can implement the same functionality in an API gateway architecture, like using Kong API gateway or Nginx as the reverse proxy. Also, I've got the videos on my channel for each tool to implement rate limiting, and I've explained in details which will actually handle all the functionalities, all the checks, and actually your application won't be handling those functionalities, and as a result you'll have much less less complex applications to implement. So I'll put the links for the both videos down in the description section, and if you're interested you can check them out. So over here I've got a nodejs application. I'll hit ls and you can see that I've got an index.js file. So if I nano the index.js file, over here you can see that I'm using the express to handle HTTP requests and also using the express rate limit package to implement the rate limiting functionalities in my application endpoints. So I've created an app from the express itself and defined my rate limiting options. So actually you can define more options that I've got over here, which you can find in the npm page of this package. So here I'm defining the refill rate with the value of 1 minute. So actually the limit, which I've set to 5, will be refilled in 1 minute. So actually a user with an IP address can make 5 requests per minute, and the excess requests will be dropped, and after a minute the same user with the same IP address can make another 5 requests. So next over here I've got the configuration to enable the rate limiting globally, which I've commented out to actually enable it on a specified endpoint. So I've got a /endpoint which is not limited, but I've got another endpoint which is /limited, which actually makes use of the rate limiting middleware. And lastly I've got the listen function which will listen on the port 3000, and I'll hit Ctrl X to exit the nano, and if I say node index.js, my application is listening on port 3000, and now I'll be able to make requests. So I'll create another tab. Let me make this bigger, and I'll use the curl to make requests to localhost port 3000, and no matter how many times I make requests, you can see that the response is coming from the express application. But if I try to make a request to /limited, so here is the first, second, third, fourth and fifth, and I'm expecting this next request to be dropped by the rate limiter middleware. If I hit enter, and you can see over here I get the message that I defined in the code. Also, if I try to investigate through the headers that are being received, if I hit curl-I, you can see that the rate limiting is set to 5 and the remaining is 0, and the rate limiting will be reset in 25 seconds. So if I wait a little bit and try to make another request, you can see that I get the response, and also over here I get the remaining set to 4 because 1 minute is passed and my 5 requests is refilled as defined in the rate limiting options. So that's all for this video. I hope you learned something new in this one. If you have any questions, any recommendations, of course go ahead and ask me in the comment section down below. So lastly, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, which will help grow the channel and motivate me to create more free contents like this. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next videos.